I never thought I'd be telling this story to strangers on the internet, but here I am, 73 years old, sitting in my little apartment in Phoenix, Arizona, finally ready to share what happened to me 5 years ago. My name is Harold, and this is the story of how my own daughter destroyed my life, took everything I had worked for, and how a miracle I never saw coming changed everything. It all started when my wife Margaret passed away from cancer in 2018. We'd been married for 47 years, and losing her felt like losing half of myself. Margaret was the glue that held our family together, the one who made sure our daughter Rachel stayed in touch, visited for holidays, remembered birthdays. Without Margaret, I felt lost in that big house in Tucson where we'd raised Rachel, surrounded by memories but completely alone. Rachel was 38 then, living in California with her husband Derek and their 2 kids, Emma and Jake. After the funeral, she seemed genuinely concerned about me. She called every few days, asking how I was doing, if I was eating properly, if I needed anything. For the first time in years, I felt like we were actually connecting as father and daughter. Margaret had always complained that Rachel never made time for us, but now it seemed like losing her mother had made Rachel realize how important family was. About 6 months after Margaret's funeral, Rachel started suggesting that I shouldn't be living alone in such a big house. "Dad, you're getting older," she'd say during our phone calls. "What if something happens to you? What if you fall and nobody's there to help?" At first, I brushed off her concerns. I was 71, not 91. I could still take care of myself, still drove to the grocery store, still maintained the house and yard that Margaret had loved so much. But Rachel was persistent. She started visiting more often, flying in from Los Angeles every few weeks. During one visit, she sat me down at the kitchen table where Margaret and I had eaten thousands of meals together and said, "Dad, I've been thinking. Why don't you sell this place and move closer to us? Derek and I have been looking at houses with guest suites. You could live with us, be part of the kids' lives, and I could take care of you the way you and Mom took care of me." The idea was tempting, I'll admit. I missed Emma and Jake terribly. They were 8 and 10 years old, and I'd only seen them a handful of times since Margaret's funeral. The thought of being able to watch them grow up, to be the grandfather I'd always wanted to be, made my heart ache with longing. What about the house? I asked. This house held 40 years of memories. Margaret had chosen the paint colors, planted the rose bushes in the backyard, hung every picture on every wall. "We'll help you sell it," Rachel said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I know it's hard, Dad, but holding on to a house won't bring Mom back. What matters is being together as a family." Over the next few months, Rachel wore me down. She painted such a beautiful picture of our life together in California. She'd bring photo albums showing me the house they were looking to buy, with its beautiful guest suite that would be perfect for Grandpa Harold. She talked about how Emma and Jake were always asking about me, how they wanted their grandfather to be part of their daily lives. Finally, in March of 2019, I agreed. Rachel flew out immediately to help me put the house on the market. The real estate agent she brought was a smooth-talking woman named Linda, who assured me that the house would sell quickly. "Properties in this neighborhood are hot right now, Mr. Henderson," she said, walking through our living room with her measuring tape and digital camera. "I'd estimate you'll get at least $450,000 for this place." $450,000. Margaret and I had bought the house for $68,000 in 1979. We'd never imagined it would be worth so much. Combined with my savings and Margaret's life insurance, I'd have over $600,000. Enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life, with plenty left over for Emma and Jake's college funds. Rachel insisted on being added to my bank accounts to help manage things during transition. It made sense at the time. She was handling the sale of the house, coordinating the movers, taking care of all the details that felt overwhelming to me in my grief. "Just temporarily, Dad," she assured me, "until we get you settled in California and you're feeling more like yourself." The house sold in 3 weeks for $460,000. I remember standing in the empty living room on closing day, looking at the bare walls where Margaret's family photos had hung for decades, feeling like I was betraying her memory. But Rachel put her arm around my shoulders and said, "Mom would want you to be happy, Dad. She'd want you to be with family." I flew to Los Angeles that same week with 2 suitcases and a heart full of hope. Rachel and Derek picked me up at LAX in their BMW, and Emma and Jake were bouncing the back seat, excited to see their grandfather. For the first time since Margaret's funeral, I felt genuinely happy. The house Rachel and Derek had bought was beautiful, a sprawling ranch-style home in Woodland Hills with a swimming pool and a guest suite that was bigger than most apartments. "This is all yours, Dad," Rachel said, showing me around the space. It had its own entrance, a kitchenette, a bedroom, and a sitting area. "You'll have complete privacy, but you'll be close enough that the kids can visit whenever they want." For the first few months, it was everything Rachel had promised. Emma and Jake would come to my suite after school, and I'd help them with homework or we'd play board games. Derek seemed genuinely glad to have me there, and Rachel was more attentive than she'd been since she was a teenager. We had family dinners every Sunday, went to the kids' soccer games together, and for the first time since Margaret's death, I felt like I belonged somewhere again. But slowly, things began to change. It started with small things. Rachel would make comments about groceries I'd bought for my kitchenette. "Dad, you don't need to stock up on so much food. We eat dinner together most nights anyway." Then she started borrowing money from my account for household expenses. "Just $20,000 for the pool renovation," she'd say. "I'll pay you back as soon as Derek's bonus comes through." Derek's bonus never seemed to come through. Rachel always had an explanation. The company was having a rough quarter. There had been unexpected expenses. The money was definitely coming, but just needed a few more months. Meanwhile, she kept borrowing more money. $30,000 for Emma's private school tuition, $15,000 for Jake's travel baseball team, $25,000 for a family vacation to Europe that I wasn't invited on because you know how hard it is for you to travel at your age, Dad. When I tried to question these expenses, Rachel would get defensive. "After everything you put this family through, the least you can do is help with expenses," she'd snap. What did she mean? Everything I put them through. I was paying my share of utilities, buying my own groceries, helping with kids. I wasn't a burden. But gradually, Rachel made me feel like I was. She started complaining about my habits. I was too noisy in the morning when I made coffee. I was using too much hot water for my showers. The kids were spending too much time in my suite instead of doing their homework. "Maybe it would be better if you found your own place," she suggested one evening. "Just temporarily, until we figure out a better arrangement." I was confused and hurt. This wasn't what we'd agreed to. This wasn't the family life she'd promised. But when I tried to access my bank account to look for an apartment, I discovered that Rachel had been busier than I'd realized. Not only had she been borrowing money, but she'd been moving into accounts that I didn't have access to. When I confronted her, she had papers ready. "Dad, you signed these documents when you moved here," she said, spreading them out on the kitchen table. "Power of attorney, transfer of assets for tax purposes. It's all legal. I've been managing your money to protect it from capital gains taxes." I stared at the documents. I remembered signing papers, but Rachel had rushed me through them, saying they were just formalities for the house sale and establishing California residency. I'd trusted her completely. I'd never imagined that my own daughter would steal from me. "I want my money back," I said, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. Rachel's mask finally slipped. The loving, concerned daughter disappeared, and I saw someone I didn't recognize. Your money? She laughed coldly. Dad, you gave us this money. You moved here because you couldn't take care of yourself. Derek and I have been supporting you, housing you, feeding you. Did you think that was free? I paid for my own food. I paid rent on the suite. You paid a fraction of what you should have. Do you have any idea how much it costs to take care of an elderly person? The insurance liability of having you living here? The time I spent managing your affairs instead of working on my own career? I felt like she'd slapped me. Rachel, I'm your father. And I'm doing what's best for this family, she said. I think it's time for you to leave. That night, Derek came to my suite. I thought maybe he was going to be the voice of reason, but instead, he handed me an envelope. Eviction notice, he said, not meeting my eyes. 30 days. I sat on my bed, holding that piece of paper, and for the first time since Margaret's death, I cried. Not the quiet tears of grief, but the broken sobs of a man who'd been betrayed by the person he loved most in the world. I tried calling a lawyer, but the ones I could afford weren't optimistic. Rachel had been careful. The documents I'd signed were legitimate, even if I hadn't understood what I was signing. Getting my money back would require a long, expensive legal battle with no guarantee of success. With the few $1,000s I had left in my checking account, I rented a studio apartment in a rundown part of Van Nuys. It was a far cry from the guest suite in Woodland Hills, with paper-thin walls, a broken air conditioner, and a view of the parking lot behind McDonald's. But it was all I could afford. I tried reaching out to Emma and Jake, but Rachel had poisoned them against me. When I called, she'd answer and tell me the kids were busy or that they didn't want to talk to me. You really hurt this family, Dad, she'd say. They don't understand why their grandfather would abandon them like this. Abandon them? I'd been kicked out of their house after my daughter stole my life savings. But according to Rachel's version of events, I'd chosen to leave because I was selfish and ungrateful. For 2 years, I lived in that studio apartment, surviving on Social Security and the part-time job I managed to get at a hardware store. The owner, a kind man named Miguel, probably hired me out of pity. At 73, I was hardly the ideal employee for lifting heavy boxes and helping contractors load their trucks. But I was grateful for the work and the human interaction. Most days, Miguel and his employees were the only people I spoke to. I thought about Margaret constantly during those dark years. I'd sit in my tiny apartment at night, looking at the one photo of her I'd managed to keep, wondering what she would think of what Rachel had done to me. Margaret had always been protective of Rachel, always made excuses for her selfishness, but I knew she would have been horrified by this betrayal. Sometimes I wondered if I should have seen it coming. Rachel had always been entitled, always expected things to be handed to her. When she was 16, she'd stolen money from Margaret's purse to buy concert tickets. When she was in college, she'd racked up credit card debt and expected us to pay it off. But she was our only child, and we'd always bailed her out, always forgiven her, always hoped she'd grow out of her selfishness. I guess she never did. The miracle I mentioned at the beginning of this story happened on a Tuesday in September of 2021. I was at work, helping a customer load drywall into his truck, when my phone rang. The caller ID said Emma Henderson, and my heart nearly stopped. I hadn't heard from my granddaughter in over 2 years. Grandpa Harold? Her voice was older, more mature than I remembered, but still sweet. She was 13 now, no longer the little girl who used to beg me to read her bedtime stories. Emma? Sweetheart, is that you? Grandpa, I need to tell you something. Mom doesn't know I'm calling you. She took your phone number out of my contacts, but I remembered it. My hands were shaking as I walked away from the truck, finding a quiet corner of the parking lot. "What is it, honey?" "Jake and I never wanted you to leave," she said, and I could hear tears in her voice. "Mom told us you chose to go, that you didn't want to live with us anymore. But yesterday, I heard her talking to Dad about the money. She said she was glad you were out of their hair, so they could spend their money without feeling guilty." I had to sit down on a stack of concrete blocks. After 2 years of wondering if my grandchildren hated me, believing Rachel's lies about me abandoning them, Emma was telling me the truth I'd suspected all along. "She stole from me, Emma," I said quietly. "She took everything your grandmother and I worked for our whole lives." "I know, Grandpa. And there's something else. Jake and I found some papers in Dad's office, bank statements and stuff. They've been using your money to pay for everything, the house, our schools, their cars. Mom bought a $30,000 handbag last month with money from something called the Harold Henderson Trust. $30,000 for a handbag. Margaret and I had saved every penny for 40 years, and Rachel was spending it on luxury accessories. I'm going to be 18 in 5 years, Emma continued. As soon as I am, I'm going to help you get your money back. This isn't right, Grandpa. What they did to you isn't right. That phone call changed everything for me. Not because Emma was going to help me get my money back, though her loyalty meant the world to me, but because I realized I'd been living like a victim for 2 years. I'd been sitting in that studio apartment feeling sorry for myself, waiting to die when I should have been fighting back. The next day, I called every lawyer in Los Angeles until I found one willing to take my case on contingency. Her name was Sarah Chun, and she was a young attorney who specialized in elder abuse cases. "Mr. Henderson," she said during our first meeting, "what your daughter did to you is called financial elder abuse, and it's a felony in California. The documents you signed don't protect her if she obtained them through fraud or coercion." For the next year, Sarah and I built a case against Rachel. It wasn't easy. Rachel had been careful to make her theft look legal, and she fought back hard when she realized I wasn't going to disappear quietly. She hired expensive lawyers and tried to paint me as a senile old man who didn't understand his own finances. But Emma and Jake were secretly helping me. Emma had taken photos of the bank statements she'd found, and Jake had recorded a conversation where Rachel bragged to her friend about finally getting rid of the old man and his guilt trips. My grandchildren were risking their relationship with their mother to help me get justice, and their bravery gave me strength I didn't know I still had. The case went to trial in October of 2022. Rachel sat across the courtroom from me, looking elegant and composed in an expensive suit that I'd probably paid for. She brought Emma and Jake to court, probably hoping their presence would make me back down. But when Emma testified about what she'd overheard, and Jake played the recording he'd made, I saw Rachel's composure crack for the first time. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they came back, the foreman stood and read the verdict. We find in favor of the plaintiff, Harold Henderson, in the amount of $487,000, plus punitive damages of $200,000. I'd won, not just my money back, but more than I'd lost. The judge also ordered Rachel to pay my legal fees and subjected her to 5 years of financial monitoring to make sure she couldn't hide assets. But the real victory wasn't the money. It was seeing Emma and Jake run to me after the verdict, hugging me tight while Rachel sat stunned at the defendant's table. "We're so proud of you, Grandpa," Emma whispered. "Mom said you'd never fight back, that you were too weak, but you proved her wrong." Today, I live in a nice apartment in Scottsdale, Arizona, not far from where Margaret and I start our life together. Emma calls me every week, and Jake texts me funny memes he finds online. They're both planning to spend summer vacation with me next year, and Rachel can't stop them. They're old enough now to make their own decisions about who they want in their lives. Rachel and I haven't spoken since the trial. Part of me is sad about that. She's still my daughter, and I still love her despite everything she did to me. But I've learned that loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. Margaret will be proud of me for finally standing up for myself. The money from the lawsuit allowed me to buy a small house with a guest room for Emma and Jake, and I've started a college fund for both of them. I also donated $50,000 to a legal aid organization that helps elderly people who've been financially abused by their families. Sarah Chun sits on their board now, and she tells me that my case has helped dozens of other seniors get their lives back. Sometimes people ask me if I regret trusting Rachel, if I wish I'd been more careful with my money. But I don't regret trusting my daughter. I regret that she wasn't worthy of that trust. But I'd rather be someone who trusts and gets hurt than someone who never trusts at all. Margaret taught me that. I'm 78 now, and I know I don't have unlimited time left. But I'm not spending my remaining years feeling bitter or broken. I'm spending them building relationships with my grandchildren, enjoying the Arizona sunshine, and helping other seniors who've been betrayed by their families. I volunteer at a senior center, teaching other elderly people about financial protection and warning them about the signs of elder abuse. The miracle in my story wasn't just winning the lawsuit or getting my money back. The miracle was remembering that I had value, that I deserved respect, that I was worth fighting for. For 2 years after Rachel kicked me out, I believed her version of events, that I was a burden, a problem to be solved, someone whose usefulness had ended. But Emma and Jake reminded me who I really was. Their grandfather, Margaret's husband, a man who'd worked hard his whole life and deserved to be treated with dignity. When Emma called me that day, she didn't just give me information about Rachel's theft. She gave me back my sense of self-worth. If you're an older person and someone in your family is pressuring you to sign papers you don't understand or asking you to temporarily give them access to your finances, please be careful. Get a second opinion from a lawyer or financial advisor who doesn't know your family member. Trust is beautiful, but it shouldn't be blind. And if you're a younger person watching a relative mistreat your grandparents, please speak up. Emma and Jake were just kids, but their courage changed everything. They couldn't stop their mother from stealing from me, but they could make sure she didn't get away with it forever. I never expected to be sharing my story on the internet at my age, but if it helps even one person avoid what I went through or gives one person courage to fight back against family members who are taking advantage of them, then it was worth telling. Margaret used to say that the worst thing about getting old wasn't the aching joints or the failing eyesight. It was the way some people started treating you like you didn't matter anymore, like your thoughts and feelings were less important because you had gray hair and moved a little slower. She was right about that. But she was also right about something else. As long as you're breathing, you have value. As long as you're breathing, you can fight back. As long as you're breathing, there's hope for justice. I'm living proof of that.